Welcome in, everybody, to another special edition of Scout's Eye on Football. I am Chris Landry, and we're here on our second day previewing the NFL draft. We've got the AFC North that we're going to get into today. We're going to take your questions. As we go live on this show at 4 p.m. Eastern, I am mindful, as many of you are, and maybe are even distracted with obviously, far more important events that are going on around the country. It reminds me of the day. There's a few situations. I can remember a courtroom ruling. I remember being in a meeting. I'm guessing it was in the spring when the Rodney King situation. I was in Cleveland at the time. Then the OJ trial and the announcement there, the verdict, and that taking place. We've got a situation like that that's going on. I will certainly pass along any information as it officially comes across. If you are joining us, we really appreciate it. A reminder again, what we are doing here. Yesterday we went through the AFC East. And that is a look at the teams, a look at what they have done, a look at what free agency has brought and wrought. And we kind of go from there and go into everything from possibilities of what might be potential options, some needs, so on and so forth. We're going to do that tomorrow, by the way, a reminder that will be normally Wednesday at 9 a.m. We do Scout's Eye on Football. We'll do that again. We'll do what are we going to do tomorrow? We're going to do the AFC South tomorrow morning, and then we'll do the AFC West tomorrow afternoon. That'll get us through the AFC. Then on Thursday, we'll do NFC East. On Friday, we'll do NFC North. On Monday, we'll do NFC South, and then on Tuesday, we'll do NFC West and kind of wrap it up and do the same thing. In addition to doing these shows all day this week and every day this week and every day next week, we'll be doing a special show for the entire draft. We'll do all 3 days. We'll take it up. As we've said, we'll take you behind the scenes. We'll keep you up to date on everything that is going on behind the scenes, give you an unvarnished look. So where you are listening to this show, if you're listening to it in podcast form, remember you should go to twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football. Go to LandryFootball.com and click on that bar that says follow Chris on Twitch. Do that purple little bar that says follow Chris on Twitch. Do that. And that will, you can sign up. It's free to subscribe to it, and it'll let you know when we are going live, and then you can catch it, because those shows are not going to be consumed in podcast form. They're going to need to be consumed in live form, as we're going to be taking you through everything to do with I'm a little distracted here as there's an announcement as the judges come into the courtroom in the announcement. So we'll get into that here in a second. I don't appreciate the folks listening, so we don't want to take you away from important events, but that's not the reason why we're here. So we're going to take you through a look around the draft in a behind the scenes way that's going to be maybe a unique way to find out some of the things that are going on. So it'll be a lot of fun. A question that Kev Belargo has joined us, as a few other folks. Is there such a thing as over-optimization in the draft process? You mentioned the Jets need cover 3 corners, but what if they get a new defense coordinator in a few years and doesn't utilize a lot of cover 3? It's a valid point, Kev. We've talked about it before. There is no question, and this is why organizations win and lose. It's important to have a system, and you have to adjust. You have to modify. No question. But one of the things you have to look at is, when you're doing this, is look into the future and look at maybe some of the things that you want to do, and you need to have, less optimization, so that you have a little bit more flexibility to take good players and use them across different schemes. And if you look at bad organizations, that's why. And that's why I say when we're talking about what's going to happen in this draft, we talk about with this player, that player. As we are hearing, by the way, just the announcement saying that in Minnesota, Derek Chauvin convicted of second-degree murder. He's convicted of third-degree murder. So we've got a couple of news there. Again, I am a little distracted, as most people are, with that. Certainly, I do think that is a problem, and we've seen that before. You go ahead, you change systems, you change coaches, you change systems, and maybe good. Look at some of these teams that have struggled. The Jets, Detroit, they've made some good draft picks, but they haven't seen it to fruition. It hasn't really developed over time. The word is breaking news: Derek Chauvin guilty on all 3 charges in the death of George Floyd. So I wanted to pass that along. It's not what we're here to talk about, but I know maybe some of you are busy with that as well. You should do find out. That is the latest there. But I do think if you look at some of those teams that have the constant change, there's no stability. And I get it. It's hard to have stability if you make bad decisions. But sometimes you've got to really look big picture, and you've got to be patient, and you've got to ignore the noise. And if you do that, then you got some real problems. And then you never end up building anything. So these players with quarterbacks and otherwise that are coming out in this draft, I got asked again today, and I've said this before, well, who's going to be the best quarterback coming out of this draft, Chris? Probably the team that drafts that, probably whoever San Francisco drafts. Why? Got a better team. They've got proven system, quarterback coach. I don't know for certain how the other teams are going to do with putting a team around players. So yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, if that's the way it goes, well, how well will they build around those players? How well will they coach those players? All those things are going to be integral to determine the success of a player. And so I do think those things are really, really important to factor in. And I do think how well you're able to take players, develop them, and be consistent with them. We've got Josh Allen now is in the 3rd year and is improving. And certainly Patrick Mahomes has developed quickly into a system with a lot of talent. Those things have as much to do as with the talent, the tangibles and intangibles of each of the players. So it's a really good point there by Kev. Again, for those of you that are just joining and maybe are not aware and maybe are missing the news, the word out of Minnesota is the police officer, Derek Chauvin, is guilty on all 3 charges. Don't have any more details, as again, I'm not able to listen to it as I am talking football with you. And that's what I want to do, but want to play proper respect for the news that's going on in the world. And it just so happens as we're doing this live, that's what's breaking at the moment. Want to get into, again, any more questions and thoughts that you may have on the draft. We'll certainly address it. Want to get into some of the thoughts about the NFC North, the AFC North, and where this may, play out for these teams. I want to go and for details, more detailed analysis, you can go to LandryFootball.com and get all the scouting reports on each of these teams. A look at each of these teams. A look at where the needs are, what they've done in free agency, an updated draft chart, their draft capital. We'll look at the team needs. Again, who they've signed, potential targets for each pick. So we go into it in great detail. We'll touch on a few things on the AFC North teams. but we got the more of the detail over at LandryFootball.com that you want to take advantage of right now. And, we think that it is something that's going to be a huge advantage to being able to get the information that you want with regards to the draft. We also have the scouting reports on all the players. We also have the draft boards, the vertical boards, and where the breakoff points are at each position. We've got the best overall players regardless of position. So one-stop shopping for you over at LandryFootball.com. So we're going to before I get into Baltimore, let's see here. Got the question here. Oh, it's Michael. If you haven't had a chance to listen to Michael does great work for us here on the Chris Landry Network, and he does his draft show. And Michael talks about what do you expect in order, the order of the edge rushers be for the draft, maybe lacking a top-end talent, but enticing options. Look, I think Jalen Phillips is a really good player that's got some Danielle Hunter in his game. I think he's very smooth and very long. I think he's a very underrated player, and I actually think he's worthy of going a little bit higher than maybe some people might think. I think Azeez Ojulari is another really good-looking player that reminds me some of Yannick Ngakoue. I think Kwity Paye is good. I don't think great, but I think I see what people see in him and potentially could grow into a poor man's Cam Jordan, maybe even a little better. Jason Alway of Penn State. I would say that the order is, anywhere Phillips, Alway, Paye. I think that's kind of where I think you'll see Joe Tryon probably come in the mix late first, early second round. That's kind of how I see him, Michael. What I have overall, I've got 6.5 grades on Phillips and Alway. I think Russo's underrated, frankly. I think Paye's good. I think Carlos Basham and Joe Tryon are really good prospects that have a lot of ability. And then I think that even later in the second, guys like Joseph Osasi and Ronnie Perkins, I have 6.0 grades on. So that's kind of how I see it. I actually think I think you're right. I don't think there's the Bosa type guy that guys that you would put in the top 5, but I think it's a better defensive end group than people are giving it credit for. And I actually think there's some pretty good depth into the second round. So I think middle of the first on, you're going to see a good little run on those. Speaking of, where guys may play out, let's get into some of the needs, and I do think that is a prime need for the Baltimore Ravens. Let's get into the Ravens and some of your thoughts. We'll take them. Appreciate you, Michael, everything you do. Bring along any questions that you may have, comments, and we'll get to them. In Baltimore, a few things that jump out at me when I broke them down this past year and put it all together. The wide receiving core finish among the 5 lowest graded units in the league. After Marquise Brown, the best options they have really are Boykin, Devin Duvernay, both who've got a long ways to go. They need an X receiver. I think that in order to help improve that passing game, Jackson needs a guy that can have a size matchup that he can attack a little bit easier throws. You can throw it more contested balls and come down with it. I think the receiving core, it's been a long process of trying to get better, and they haven't done a good enough job there. They have had one of the best tackle tandems in the league with Stanley and Orlando Brown, but that's changing, no question. This got some really good tackles. I think that's going to be a high priority, and we'll see where it goes. Maybe a Tevin Jenkins, who excels in the run game, is something that they'll look hard at. I think in terms of team needs in other spots, Guard is something that they need. There's no question that Jackson's play regressed in large part because of the offensive line play. I think people think, well, he's a mobile guy, so everything's fine. He can just run. It's not the way it works. You've got to have some protection in the pocket, and things break down, and that was an issue. I think defensively, their weakest position is linebacker. Patrick Queen has to get better, and I think he will. They re-signed L.J. Fort, but they're not good enough there. I think they need, speaking of edge rushers, I think they need at least a couple of them. They'll miss Judon. I didn't think Ndakwe played well down the stretch, but they will miss him. Pernell McPhee, Tyus Bauer, not enough there. I think maybe a younger backup quarterback, offensive tackle that we've talked about. Let's take a look at free agency. Kevin Zeitler, I thought, graded out pretty well for the Giants. They say the Giants did $12 million by cutting him, but I still think he's got some good play in him, at least the short term. Thought he was a good signing at guard. Sammy Watkins was added. He's got a lot of ability, but reminds me of some of the guys that the Ravens have brought in the past. Not much consistency, but a lot of ability. Putting together consistent play is going to be the key to how much better they can get, opposite of Hollywood Brown. We talked about the re-signing of Tyus Bauer. He's got some upside as a pass rusher. He's young and he can improve. Derek Wolfe re-signed, terrific run stuffer, and he can get some push up the middle. But they don't have enough there. And L.J. Fort's a two-down linebacker, really good against the run. Gus Edwards was brought back as an RFA running back. So they've got some work to do. I would say edge rusher options where they are at 27. I think the names we mentioned, Jalen Phillips, Ojulari, Kwity Paye are all in play. At 58, between Patrick Jones, Joe Tryon, Carlos Basham, I think at least one will be there if they go in a different direction in the first round. I think that center is another priority for them. Skura signed with the Dolphins. Makari is a lower level graded center. It's a really important, always important, of course. But in the run-focused offense, I think it's an even bigger factor. Creed Humphrey would be an option, as would Landon Dickerson, but that would probably have to come in at 27, maybe a little bit high for Dickerson. Humphrey's another possibility. Dickerson, second round, might be something that they would consider. Guard, I mentioned that they signed Zeitler, but there's room for an upgrade over Bradley Bozeman. They were 23rd in sack rate up the middle. They really struggled in a lot of those areas. So I think they've got to improve the interior of the offensive line. I think Vera Tucker, if he were to slip, I don't think he's slipping to 27. He's got great versatility. I think he's a better guard, but he certainly can be an effective right tackle. Trey Smith, Quinn Miners, second round, third round, Deontay Brown, Aaron Banks are all possibilities. And then the receiver spot, who could be there? Look, I like the speed of Watkins. I like the potential of Duvernay. And, but they need as I said, a big X receiver with a large catch radius. And we'll see. We'll see where they go. I think it's a little high for Rashad Bateman or Terrence Marshall. Maybe an option. One of those maybe. If you go second round, you're probably looking at a Dwayne Eskridge or a Dewami Brown, guys like that. So Baltimore's a team that's got some work to do. They are no longer the great defense that the reputation brings. They've got some rebuilding to do there. And then the offensive line, as I mentioned, has got some rebuild. So it's not just, it's quarterback, it's this. The quarterback can make plays. Can they get more consistent protection? Can they continue to run the football well? And defensively, can they improve enough there? Those are those are key spots there as you look at the transition for this Ravens team. Let's take a look at the Cincinnati Bengals, and get to your questions a little bit. I thought that going into this offseason, based upon how the season went and the Bengal situation, was the offensive line protecting Joe Burrow. That's the focus. And I think it is. I think they understand they've got to protect him. They've got to give him weapons. The Bengals, we've seen this before. Seen it with Carson Palmer. Good quarterback. And Carson Palmer was off to a really good start. Got the Bengals into the playoffs. I still remember them beating the Steelers early in the playoff game, and then Carson went down, and then it seemed like from there it just only snowballed till Carson won it out of there. They like Jonah Williams. Now the issue is, can he stay healthy? On the right side, Riley Reif was signed, but he's a short-term answer. I think if you look at him, they're a little bit gun-shy. They've missed on a couple of tackles. I don't think it can be that way, but I think they might be. And I think they may feel like they're better off on the offensive line than they really are. Riley Reif's going to play right tackle. Williams is going to stay on the left. I think all signs are pointing them taking Jamar Chase personally. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. I think in terms of needs, I'm not crazy about the guard play. I don't think they're good enough there. Jordan or Spain personally. I think there need upgrades there. I think a young tackle makes sense to groom behind. If they feel comfortable at tackle, I think there's enough depth at tackle to find a right tackle, be it a Leatherwood or someone in the second round, to kind of play behind Riley Reif, if that's the direction they want to go. I mean, Jonah Williams is good. I don't think he's Penei Sewell, and I would really consider that hard, but I don't think that they're going to consider that. We'll see. Over on the defense, man, the linebackers are about as bad as can be. You got to stop Lamar Jackson. You got some teams that can run the football in that division. You cannot have that type of play. Now, I thought Carl Lawson was their only consistent pass rusher last year. They lose him. They signed Trey Hendrickson. That helps, but that's not good enough. They need more pass rush there. Their pass defense, not just pass rush, but their cover on the outside is not good enough. Uwuze was certainly a good player for Dallas last year, probably their best corner last year, Mike Hilton, but that's not enough. I think they need help at defensive tackle. Ogabuni was signed. Geno Atkins is not the same. I mean, he is definitely seen his best football, and that needs an upgrade. Tight end, not been the same since Tyler Eiffert's left. Offensive tackle we talked about. Receiver, A.J. Green is not what he has been. I think T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, for people wonder, what about those two? They need a third guy. I think they're more inclined for people who want to know, well, what would they do at 5? Why wouldn't they take Pitts? I think they're more inclined to go with 3 wide sets. I think that's what Zach's comfortable with, and I definitely know that which Joe Burrow's comfortable with. So while the tight end makes sense with Pitts and big receiver, I don't know. I think that with similar grades, they may lean towards Chase if they have the opportunity to take Chase or Pitts. We'll see. Running back depth, of course, Giovanni Bernard was released. He's with Tampa. So, I mentioned the signings. Hendrickson's really good player, not an every down guy, but is a high pressure guy. He's had 13 and a half sacks in 2020, despite not being an every down player. You got to get good play around him, and you got to get good play next to him to really maximize what he can bring to you. We mentioned Awuzie at 26, is the best corner for that Dallas had last year. I know that wasn't asking much, but that's a big spot. Riley Reef, Mike Hilton again. To mention him a little was slot corner that graded out solidly for the Steelers. He's young enough. They think he can be a better player, and that is nice plug guys that can at least give them some depth to line up. We'll mention Ogunjobi from Cleveland is a rotational defensive lineman. Ricardo Allen is a capable starting safety who could play inside slot corner some as well. So that's but he's been injury prone, so that's a concern I'd have. So let's take a look at some of the options. I think that if they're looking at interior offensive line, center, guard, there's no one obviously they're taking there. We got to start at 38. Obviously, we kind of talked about what they're going to do at 5. I think you're looking at guys like a Wyatt Davis, a Mayfield, a Leatherwood, a Creed Humphrey, a Landon Dickerson. Those are the type of guys that you would look at on the second round. Third round for them at 69. That's where you'd look at a Quinn Miners, a Josh Myers, a Trey Hill, Deontay Brown, Trey Smith, probably gone then, but would represent good value. And you start doing the numbers, one of those guys or a couple of them might be available there. I don't see that, obviously, as the major priority in the second, but we'll see how the board goes. Outside receiver or Kyle Pitts, I think that's where they're going with their first pick, and we'll see how that plays out. And pardon me, let me stop the phone here. Offensive tackle we just discussed. We talked about Jonah Williams, 634 snaps in 2 seasons. Could be a building block if it can stay healthy. Talked about Riley Reef. I do think that if they, for example, and I'm not saying they're going to do it, but a consideration would be you put Penei Sewell, you got Jonah Williams, you got 2 guys that have left tackle feet. I think it gives you bookend guys at tackle. And again, you're not even convinced. It gives you some insurance over Jonah, who you worry a little bit about your health. But I think that they're looking at the depth at tackle. They're looking at maybe not investing that high a pick at tackle. That's what I'm thinking that they're thinking. It's my sense with dealing with them to where they are. But we'll see. I think it shores up the offensive line. I think they're going to do that a little bit later. If they don't, you're looking at maybe a Jalen Mayfield, a Leatherwood, a Eichenberg, Dylan Radness, a Jackson Corman, a Walker Little in the second, third round, respectively, those type of guys. And then edge rusher, which, look, they were 32nd in sack rate last year. And they haven't really done a whole lot. I mean, Hendrickson I think Hendrickson's got a little bit more pass rush ability than Carl Lawson, but we're not talking about having enough there. And Hendrickson's, you're not dealing with someone that is the elite guy, and he's going to need some help. At 38, is somebody like Asase or Owai going to slip? Possibly. That's where you jump on it. Joe Tryon, if he's there, that certainly would be a possibility. A little later, a Patrick Jones or Quincy Roche, I mean, guys like that would be maybe the direction you want to go. Got Cleveland, got Pittsburgh I want to get to. Michael's got some other good questions and thoughts. Would you advise they use Orlando Brown? This is now talking about Baltimore, going back to use Orlando Brown to swap picks to get an early first or just try to acquire an additional first later or somewhere like Indianapolis. Yeah, I would certainly consider that. I think it would really depend upon, and you make that move, obviously, when you've got the guy that you want. The issue that I would have with that is that I don't know that that's going to really entice a lot of folks because it's got some good. I think most people would prefer to go with one of their younger guys. If you look at Orlando, I don't think this is, I think you're dealing with a guy that's seen his best ball, and I think most people look at the tackle population in this draft and are a little bit more excited about going in that direction as opposed to acquire him. So the same reason why you'd want to make that move if you were them, it's the same reason why it's probably going to be difficult to get somebody to swap. But if you can do it, absolutely. Potential trade up of Orlando Brown in 27 to 8 with Carolina might put them in the Pitts range. Do you think it would push the needle for Baltimore offensively? Yeah, I don't think Carolina would do that. I don't think Carolina would do it. Look, I think that Carolina is comfortable getting a tackle. I do think, again, Orlando, look, I mean, I'm not ruling it out. I can't say it for certain. But to me, going down to 28, I think Carolina is looking to move. But I think they can move down less. 28 gets you a different level of tackle, and it gets you a different level of player overall. I think there's possibility you still get a first-round grade at 27, even though I only got 24. I think it's a good chance first-rounders there, but I think you're getting a different level of player. I would not do that deal if I were Carolina. I certainly would do the deal if I were Baltimore. So we'll see how that plays out. And the cornerback unit is questionable in Cincy, but haven't much in terms of them addressing it. Any mid-round fits you like? Yeah, I think we kind of talked a little bit about some of the guys that I think might be some good fits. I do think that the corner population in this draft has got some people that I like. And, looking specifically as I see them coming off the board, I do think that guys like Eric Stokes and Elijah Molden, Melifano at Syracuse, Newsome is going to go a little bit higher than I've got him graded. Sean Wade, Debo from Stanford, even Robert Rochelle of Central Arkansas. I think those guys represent some good depth and good value. I think the issue there is that, at 5, you know this, Michael, people are mostly talking about the draft in terms of the first round, and you're bringing up mid-round. Most people don't talk a whole lot about what's going to happen in second, third, or fourth. They only want to know. They think the draft is first round. You obviously are very astute in looking at things in terms of down the road. And I think that is certainly on the list of some of their needs. I also think, as I mentioned, they like Hilton. They think he can be a help as Allen. I'm not as high on him. There are a lot of needs in Cincy. I think corner's a need. I think there'll be opportunities to get one. But, man, I tell you, offensive line is a priority. Protecting Joe Burrow is a priority. Getting weapons for Joe Burrow, a priority. So between tackle, at least one, if not two interior offensive linemen, a weapon, which, again, they're probably going to get with their first pick, and then come back, needing some help on their defense. I think their bigger concern on defense is pass rush, and I would agree, even though I think corner's a need. I've been in situations like this to where you go into the draft and you realize you got more needs than you got picks to fill them. And look, you just have to be patient. You have to let your board talk to you and get as many good players as you can, and don't skimp on, well, you know what, we didn't address corner. Sometimes, let's take corner. Well, we couldn't address it in this draft. Well, why? Why didn't you do it? Well, the right guys at the right time are not there. So take care of what you can take care of. Let it come to you. And then, sometimes I have seen it where you go in and you say, I don't give a darn. I'm going to get myself a, whatever. And I'm going to get 2 of them. And then you can't. I don't like any of them here. I don't like any of them there. And, yeah, you could move up, move down, maybe, but you got better players on the board at other spots, which also, by the way, are needs. And sometimes you go in and you think, man, I feel pretty good. But then you're able to stack certain players in certain position rooms that are really good. I think sometimes you got to deal with the draft in a way that if you set your board correctly, if you evaluate players correctly, let the board come to you and take the players as their value, as their quality would allow you and suggest that you should not force it. But I do think there'll be some corners there. I just don't know when I can say when they're going to go. In my thought process, I think guard, center, tackle, the outside receiver, the edge rusher, would be the bigger priority of needs. But if the player quality suggests corner at some spot, that is absolutely a need. There's a lot of needs on this team. A team that is, and by the way, a shout out to Erect Owl Dysfunction. What a name! What a name you came out. He says, "Can I have a shout out?" So appreciate you joining us. Cleveland Browns are a really improving roster, and I could make the case, at least going into the draft, that they have a roster that could match up with anybody in their division. They signed John Johnson, Troy Hill in the slot, and John Johnson, of course, at safety. Myles Garrett is a really top 5 pass rusher in the league, a blue grade pass rusher. They did sign Tack McKinley. Are they going to get anything out of Tack? Well, look, Tack is not going to be the guy. We know that that when you're dealing with a guy that's a high pick, and that Tack and Vic Beasley were two guys that did not pan out on the edge for Atlanta. I'm not going to sell anybody that the light's going to come on with Tack, but I will say you've got a really good end on the other side. So Tack, if you can't get it done now, my friend, it's time. He's been subpar. Now, let's address, and I see Tony Finn is joining us, good Brown fan. And so I'll address it now because it was on my idea in my notes that I wanted to discuss on the releasing of Sheldon Richardson. Talking about getting a starting caliber at 26. Well, here's my thoughts on it. And I got asked today on a show in Florida by one of the hosts, in fact, Miller and Moulton, who are on this channel every morning from 5 to 8 Central, 6 to 9 Eastern. And I be careful with that. I know there are two guys, obviously Barmore and Ozeworki of Washington. Here's my thoughts. Be careful. I was asked today, because of the release of Richardson, does it make them almost a certain to take a defensive tackle? And the answer is no, it does not. Oh, the need is there. And if the best player on your board, if you got a cluster and one of them's a defensive tackle, they go to your top, and that's where you go if the grades are equal. I don't have a scenario, and I'm looking at it here. I'm trying to look and see and figure out a way that the best player on the board when they pick at 26 is going to be a defensive tackle. And I don't see any way that's the case. There's just not. I mean, I think Barmore and Ozeworki are good players. I'm not a bad pick there. I just think they're leaving a better player on the board. So, look, there's no question that's a need. And I know everybody thinks one player away. If we don't address that, it's going to prevent us from going to the Super Bowl. Can't look at it that way. You really can't. I think it really depends on what they think of Christian Barmore or Ozeworki from Washington. I think they're good. I think they can help this team. I think they could play early, but to me, I don't think they're the best player on the board when they pick. We'll have to see. They've got 26, 59, 90, 92, 111, 133, 170, 212, and 259. Look, I think that there's help needed at linebacker. They, need help at defensive end just as much in my mind. It's there's no question defensive tackle, and I think they need to get a younger receiver. So, look, this is a talented team, but there are holes. Everybody has them. It's time to look at free agency. Remind you, again, John Johnson's one of the top safeties in the league, only 25. Clowney was signed. Now, let me say this about Clowney. There's a lot of talk about this and that and Clowney and all that. We're not talking about a long-range deal. Clowney is long-levered, very underrated against the run, very good against the run. He gets good push. He's not a sack guy. He's a push guy. To me, I think what it is when you're taken in an elite level high and you're not this, going, whoa, why can't he have, 12 sacks a year? Look, I mean, he's not Myles Garrett. I mean, that's not what he is. He's a different guy. But, that is certainly neat. I don't think they're good enough. Now, Malik Jackson is slowed down. Tack McKinley, again, they're going to need to hit. Troy Hill, the corner, was signed. I think he's one of the better slot corners last year. So, look, I mean, Malcolm Smith re-signed. He's a versatile guy. I thought he did a good job in coverage. Rashad Higgins did pretty good job in place of Odell Beckham last year. And then, they lose Ogabuyu, we just talked about with the Bengals, which is a solid rotational guy. So where do they go? All right. If I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the options for him at 26. Now I do this again by position. Kwity Paye, Ojulari. Ojulari would be a great pick. Would be great value, need spot, and give you two outside guys. Helps you a lot. Believe it or not, makes your tackles better. And that's the other thing to learn. But we need a tackle. You may need a tackle. Damn sure better have the grade, or you're just putting a body at a position of need. Better off getting a better graded end. That'll help make your tackles better. And I think, look, they're kind of in a pickle. They're going to have to sign somebody. They're going to have to kind of fix it. But you can't fix it by reaching, in my view. So that's my thoughts on it. Second round, Jones, Tryon. I think Tryon's maybe gone. Basham, certainly. Then later, Perkins and McGrone, Weaver, Werner, Rumpf. Let's remind folks they've got 4 picks in the top 91. They've got 2 third-round picks. So they've got some real opportunities at any of those spots to get an edge guy. Look, here's another position that's not talked about enough for the Browns is corner. If they're healthy, love Ward, love Greedy Williams, and I think Troy Hill in the slot, 3 good ones. They're not healthy, and I don't think you can count on them being healthy. Ward and particularly Williams have dealt with a lot of injuries, and they're not deep there behind them in the boundary. So don't flip out if the right edge rusher is gone. You start doing the numbers. You start saying, well, this guy's not going to be there. This guy, somebody's going to be there. It just may not be at your position that you're hoping for. So if those edge guys are gone, who slips? Could Caleb Farley slip? You medically have a good grade on him. Maybe others are a little bit scared off, or not scared off, but may go in a different direction. Does he slip all the way to 26? I don't think so. You're not passing him up. If he is, I don't have Greg Newsome rated quite as high, but maybe in the second round, the Melifanu, the Stokes, the third round, Adibu, Mukakamu, Rodarius Williams, those type of guys. I think a linebacker is a huge need for him, an off-the-ball linebacker. Now, this scheme that they play is going to push safeties into the linebacker position. So this is a kind of a devalued position. So they'll get these guys a little bit later. But I think they can find an upgrade over Anthony Walker. Sione Tataki and Mac Wilson and Jacob Phillips behind Walker. I don't know. I don't think they go Owosu Koromoro that high. But I'm going to tell you, if Zaven Collins is there, you take him. That's a difference-making type guy. That's a guy that can create a lot of havoc. A little high for Nick Bolton, but certainly the second. He, Jabril Cox, Dylan Moses, maybe later in the third, Chaz Surratt, Baron Browning. What about the receiver options? Don't like what I think is going to be the option at 26, but who knows? What about Dwayne Eskridge and Tyrone Wallace in the second, and De'Ami Brown and Seth Williams in the third? Defensive tackle. So let's get to that. Getting younger in the secondary, getting younger at defensive tackle is a must. Tony mentioned the release of 30-year-old three-technique Sheldon Richardson. Billings and Jackson were on one-year deals. 21st in rushing grade for defensive tackles. I think the only option consideration is Barmore, and I see him as a high second-round value. And I don't think it's a bad pick if they take him, but there's a little bit with Barmore that I think is a little bit more risky than another option at another position. That's what I'm going to say. I think that the value would be guys, and I don't think Uznaworski from Washington's going to be there when they pick at 59. In fact, I know he's not. I think he'll go before that. But Nixon is in that next tier and would have to be a consideration there at 59. McNeil, Shelvin, or the options maybe the third-round pick. So, look, there's some guys I think you can look at, but I wouldn't panic there. And I'm not sure that I'd be comfortable selling you a defensive tackle at 26. I really don't. But that's a roster that's looking better and better, and let's see how they're able to fix this. But you're never this whole, well, we didn't need this, we don't need that. I just don't see that. I think that is very much overblown. Let's get to a couple of things here. Tony, what are your thoughts? Yeah, we addressed that. Browns are higher on Ojulari, Tryon. Do you think Clowney changes those plans? Draft board will matter most? It'll be the draft board. Those guys, Ojulari and Tryon, are definitely guys you'd consider. Nixon, I mentioned, is a little bit below. Let's see. Chris just sent us, sorry, if you already get, what are the best options for the Cowboys and the Saints? We'll get into that when we address them in the lecture. We focus on the AFC North, but the Cowboys are certainly in a position. I think it'll be a defensive player. I think there's a really good chance that it'll be Patrick Surtain at 10. I think that's a real likely spot. For the Saints, I think there's some options still on defense. I don't think there's going to be value at quarterback there. So that can go in that different direction. But we appreciate you, Kev, over at LSU Talk. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Ben is the answer at quarterback on the roster. Well, people will say, well, what do you do? How do you do? What's going to happen? Well, what do they think about Dwayne Haskins? They will get to know Is he somebody that they feel can be a leader and develop? They've got good culture there. I don't think culture changes people, but we'll see what Dwayne Haskins. We're talking about a guy that people were thinking and moving up for and all this and stuff. They've got him. Mason Rudolph, they like. I'm not so sure. People will say things like Pittsburgh bed draft Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask is I think a better version of Mason Rudolph. I don't know. I think quarterback is a need. I think quarterback will be a focus at some point. I don't see that early. But I think certainly he has declined. Big Ben has for a while, and I think there's some value. I'm not as high on Kellen Mond as others. They may take him there. I think Jamie Newman, Davis Mills. I don't know that Davis Mills is any better than Mason Rudolph. I really don't. Jamie Newman's a little bit more athletic. So, look, this team started off 11-0. They fell apart quickly. Quarterback's an issue. I think running back is something that's a priority. They need a lot of help on the offensive line. They re-signed Zach Banner and Joe Haig, but those are not the answers. I think they need two corners. I think there's some issues there. Juju Smith-Schuster re-signed. Only 24. They lost Bud Dupree. I thought they missed Bud Dupree down the stretch last year. I thought that was now it's an issue. Filer is not a big loss, but hurts their depth at guard, losing him to the Chargers. Cam Sutton is re-signed at corner. He's been a solid number 2 corner. I thought he's graded out as a solid number 2 corner past couple of years. Zach Banner tore his ACL, the big tackle. They've got some corners a priority for them. Hayden, Sutton, best options. 24. Farley, Newsome, second round. Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes, Melifano of Syracuse, Sean Wade, Paul Adebo. Those are the type of guys that I think you'd consider. Offensive line, with Pouncey retiring, starting offensive guard, haven't played center, so they can't really utilize that. I think finding that type of help is really important. The run game, I think fixing the offensive line is an even bigger priority than the running back. I think it's a real problem. So, at 24, Creed Humphrey, little high for Dickerson for my blood. I'd be comfortable waiting to see, maybe make a move up and get Dickerson higher up on the second, or Quinn Miners, Josh Myers, Trey Hill, Drake Jackson. Those are the type of guys that I think would fit. We mentioned the corners, tackles. You got Okafor, Joe Haig's a swing guy. Zach Banner, I think they like, but to me, they're fringe starters. I think that they're in a tackle market, and I think it could be right. I think it could be left tackle. I think Darrisaw. I think Tevin Jenkins, even down the road, Cosme. I wouldn't consider Cosme in the first personally. Leatherwood, Eichenberg, Dylan Radness in the second. Guys like Jackson Carman and Walker Little and Spencer Brown in the third would make some sense. So I think all those things are really kind of how I look at it. So let's look at the running back position, because I think that's a need. And this is, again, where you start to look. You got Benny Snell there. James Conner's gone. There's really not the answer there. That's a spot where it may not be, as I said, offensive line, probably a bigger priority in terms of numbers and to fix the run game even more than the running back. We'll talk about corner, but I don't know depending on how this goes, at 24, if Najee Harris is still on the board, I don't know how you – I don't know that there's a better player still on the board there. Maybe there is. We'll see. That's certainly a consideration, more so than any other. ATN's been mentioned. I think Najee's a better fit for what they do, but ATN's really good. I probably wouldn't take Javonte Williams there because I think, again, if those other two backs are gone, that means somebody else at one of these other need spots gives you greater value. I think a Javonte Williams in the second would make more sense, or a Trey Sermon, or a Chuda Hubbard, or a Kylan Hill. Those are the type of guys. So I think for Pittsburgh, it's about figuring out your quarterback situation, which I don't know that they're doing that in the draft. The right guy they fall in love with, I could see it. But I think it's about fixing the offensive line, getting a running back, getting some help at corner. I think those are the primary areas. I don't think that they're good enough, as good as they need to be, rushing the passer outside of Watt. I think they'll miss Bud Dupree. So that's certainly something that let's watch for them to make a move there. I think certainly an OLB that can rush the passer figures into the mix as well. So that's a look at the AFC North. Again, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central Time, we're going to go over the AFC South. Tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m., we'll do the AFC West, and we'll do the same thing with those teams. Take a look at it. Let's some other thoughts. What do you think about the state of and this problem with this? Dickerson seems like the easiest choice for me based on my personal. I don't know who you're talking about, which one of the teams you're talking about. So if you Landon Dickerson is a guy that can play center, can play guard, good line caller, very strong at the point of attack, runs his feet very well. I'm not crazy about him late first round. I think he's a guy that so you're talking about him with the Steelers. As I said, with that offensive line, I don't like that move with him at that spot because as much as I like Landon Dickerson, I don't think he warrants – what I mean by that, it doesn't matter where you take a guy, okay? If a guy can play, I've got him graded there for a reason. I think he's a good player. I just think there's going to be a better player on the board. And outside of maybe Creed Humphrey, I don't think I take an interior offensive lineman there because I think, Vera Tucker's certainly gone. I just think that at 24, that be it Darashaw or Tevin Jenkins, I think there'll be better options there at tackle. I think that there'll be an edge defender. I think there'll be a corner. I just think they're going to be better players. And knowing Kevin, again, they may think Landon Dickerson's a great player. You may have them graded in that tier. If so, then obviously that's what you do. But that's what scouting is do you have the evaluations correctly? I think there'll be value at corner at 24. I think it's very questionable that there'll be a value at the interior of the offensive line. I think there'll be value at tackle. And I think there's a chance there could be value at running back. And I think there's value at another edge player for your defense. So I'd be thinking along those lines if I were Pittsburgh, if it were me. Don't know what they're going to do, but some good thoughts. Hey, reminder, check out LandryFootball.com for all the latest inside information. We've got a on-the-clock feature for all the NFL teams. We break down the details, all the pre-draft depth charts, the draft capital, all the free agent evaluations, who they've lost, who they've signed, their cap situation, the needs, the potential targets at each round and spot. all really important, I think, to get you ready. We've got, with that, the horizontal draft board where you see the separation. This is where, and again, this is how I see them. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it should be or is, but that's how I see them. What you will see is where the separation is at each position, and then overall to where I think that's why when we're talking about a particular team, this is where value is. And it's not as simple as, well, the fourth guy at that position is just a little bit behind the third guy. He might be even with the third guy, or he might be a long way away from the third guy. Where is the separation at each positions and overall? That's what we got for you in both the horizontal and the vertical boards, the top overall and then the position boards. Then we also have for you all the scouting reports, every player from the first player that's going to be drafted to an undrafted free agent. We've got it for you. So check it all out at LandryFootball.com. Take advantage of the scouting season sale today. A reminder again also that we are going to be doing live draft show. Half an hour before the first pick on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, all the way through the picks. I'm going to give you an unvarnished view. Going to take you inside to kind of what I'm dealing with some of the teams. You know, I can deal with the texts and the DMs. It'll be a little, again, it'll be a little different. We'll be talking, but we'll be reacting to things. We'll allow you guys to be in the chat room, and I'll provide you the information that I'm able to do, tell you a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes. It won't be kind of the polished. It'll be, as I say, the unvarnished view, a peel behind the curtain. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and it was suggested by one of you guys. So we really appreciate you doing that. It was, I think it was Fantasy One-on-One. I haven't heard from him lately. Hope he's doing well. But credit him for doing it. I think it'll be a really good idea. We also will, again, be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for another draft show preview with the AFC South, and then again tomorrow afternoon with AFC West. So we've got it all for you here at on Scout's Eye on Football. Appreciate you joining us. Appreciate all your, Spartan Barton, Kev Calargo, LSU Talk, Michael coming in with us. Appreciate Michael. If you haven't got a chance to listen to his show right here on this network, you're missing it. Does a really good job, a really bright young guy, and just thrilled to have him. So appreciate all of you joining us. Join us again next time. Oh, by the way, another reminder, I will be joining in 1 hour Scott Seidenberg for the Film Room Show. And sure, we'll be getting into some more draft talk. And so bring your questions there, your thoughts there, as we'll address them with the latest, and we'll see what Scott's got on his mind, and we'll take it from there. So we appreciate you joining us. Then if you can, we would very much appreciate it. Take care, everyone. Have a great evening. Talk to you in an hour. Take care.